Welcome to Saturday morning and welcome to the live stream of the Shaun Starr Show on youtube.com. Happy to be with you. I'm glad you're with me as we return to NHL action for the first time since Super Bowl Sunday as the Montreal Canadiens, my friends, get back to work on the road at Ottawa tonight. Should be an interesting one. We'll certainly get into the X's and O's of the Montreal Canadiens getting back to work as we're that much closer. Here we are together today on the 22nd of February, getting that much closer to the NHL trade deadline coming up on March 7th. So I'm curious to get your reaction to what we think the Montreal Canadiens are going to be up to over the next couple of weeks. How do you feel? Do you feel strongly one way or the other? Is it time for the Montreal Canadiens to sell? As we know, there are four UFAs. There are four pending UFAs in David Savard, Christian Dvorak, Yoel Armia, and Jake Evans. Sell. Or is it, I don't know, individual based on the strategy at hand for Ken Hughes and Jeff Gorton between now and the 7th of March? And maybe you have somebody else in mind. Maybe you have somebody else in mind on this Saturday morning together where you can convince me that someone like Josh Anderson might be attractive to another player. Maybe we can talk about Mike Matheson's value in terms of the Montreal Canadiens looking to fatten up the purse. And by that, I mean more first-round picks. It's interesting to note that when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens and their two first-round picks they have coming this summer, everyone seems to be salivating over the possibilities of what the first-round draft is going to look like in the summer of 2026. So it's going to be very fascinating to see how that all goes as Ken Hughes tries to rebuild. And there are a couple of things I think that have been confirmed here at this point. As we say good morning to some of our favorites. Good morning, Steph. Good morning, Alex. I'll be taking your questions and observations throughout the course of the live stream today. So please jump into the live chat. Thank you so much. And don't forget our question for this morning as it relates to who's the player? Who's the player for you today as the push to the finish line? The Canadiens have 26 games to go to wrap up an 82-game regular season. Who for you is the player that you need to see something from between tonight in Ottawa and the end of the regular season, game number 82 of this year? I'm curious to hear who the player is that you guys want to see. You need to see something from between now and the end of this regular season. Good morning, Johnny. Good to see you. Now a follower. Well, thank you so much. Great start to our Saturday morning. We are at 38 people watching the live stream. We have some of our favorites here, including my man, Steph Howard, including my man, Alex, my man, Ace, back in. My brother in Detroit was asking about David Savard. So there's a name that seems to be attractive. Good morning, Keats. What's up? Hope you enjoy the new branding. Hope you enjoy the new hat I'm sporting today. The first show where I'm doing a hat. And of course, I'm drinking my favorite hot beverage out of my favorite mug, which reminds me to remind you that we got something cool coming up. We got something cool right now. I'll show it to you right here. If you head over to the ShaunStarShow.com, you can see some of the stuff we got in terms of an all black hat, a two-tone 11-ounce mug, dishwasher and microwavable, and of course the hat I'm wearing here, the two-tone. You got the white mesh and you got the black front, and of course you have here the snapback feature on the hat as well. So pretty exciting stuff. And of course, as always, I'll remind you in the here and now that yes, everything that we do here gets put back into the channel as we continue to grow, have better graphics around us. So I want to get to a couple of different observations right off the hop before I get into obviously the player that has my attention. And I think you know where I'm headed in this direction, right? So let's talk about what I think we've seen so far from the Montreal Canadiens, who go to Ottawa tonight, losers of 3 in a row. For a team that had won 8 of 10, that was cruising after the Christmas break. And we've seen not only the team slow down, we've seen Lane Hudson kind of slow down a little bit, but there's no concern about 48. There's no concern about 48's future. And then when I move up to the forward position, I'm a Nick Suzuki guy. I am. I think Nick Suzuki is a top line player in the National Hockey League. Now, is he in the world of the Austin Matthews, of the Connor McDavids, of the Sasha Barkovs? No, he's not. There are tiers to this NHL world we talk about all together all the time. I think Nick Suzuki is a premier center in the National Hockey League. It doesn't help the fact that he's got fluctuating line mates throughout the course of his career. I think right now he has one legitimate first line player that he gets to play with, and that's his boy, Cole Caulfield. And when we talk about first line players, you know, in the video I put out on Friday with my partner, Marco D'Amico, we talked about Patrick Laine. We talked about Patrick Laine, and isn't an idea so crazy it might actually work? Could it actually work? Putting Patrick Laine on the Canadiens' top line. As you know, I've been pretty consistent here. I think Patrick Laine's pace isn't good enough. And 5-on-5, his numbers through one of my favorite follows on Twitter is DataPuck. And DataPuck has been putting out some interesting graphics as it relates to Patrick Laine's even strength prowess on the ice. And he's just not up to snuff. He's just not a 5-on-5 player. But in the here and now, why not? Why not? You know, the Canadiens are 6 points out of a playoff spot, but they are 3 points out of being a bottom 5 team in the National Hockey League. I don't think the Canadiens are ultimately going to land inside or 5 and in July at the draft. So why not? Why not see what Patrick Laine can do as a top line player? Because I don't think Juraj Slafkovsky has passed the test this season. I really don't. And I'm not saying the 20-year-old is a bust. I'm not saying it was a bad pick. What I'm saying is in the here and now, I think Juraj Slafkovsky has put way too much pressure on himself. I think Juraj Slafkovsky is trying to be a number one line center. And I think he's trying really hard to be that guy. And I think when you're trying that hard, that means you're thinking way too much and things don't come to you naturally. I believe that's what's happened to Juraj Slafkovsky. And I'd love to see him maybe go down, play with Brendan Gallagher. Maybe Jake Evans can be the center that he needs. And maybe there's going to be some pressure that's lifted off of him. So when I talk about Cole Caulfield, legitimately, he's a first-line player for me. And we talk about the possibility of 40 goals from Cole Caulfield. Absolutely, I could see it. When it comes to Jake Evans, no doubt, elite level penalty killer. And I think there's a lot of value there. When it comes to Jake Evans as an elite level penalty killer. And that's why I'm of the opinion it's got to be sell, sell, sell. If you can get what you can get for Jake Evans, and arguably, you know, the better version of him left when Emil Heineman went down on January 13th when he was hit by a car in Utah. Jake Evans and the Montreal Canadiens, I'm not so sure exactly where they are. But when it comes to the value of a Jake Evans, especially if you want to take one of those ideas that was floated around vis-a-vis Yoel Armia, Jake Evans as a package in a potential trade, I really do believe the Montreal Canadiens can get a nice, maybe a 2026 first-round pick for a package involving Jake Evans and Yoel Armia. And I do believe today, hit me up in the comments, I think Jake Evans can get the Montreal Canadiens a first-round pick coming back in exchange. So we say good morning. Good morning, Chris Element. Nice to see you. Calling it Evans will be traded latest on Monday. I think it's sell, sell, sell mode for the Montreal Canadiens. No doubt. And when it comes to game day, yes, it's Montreal and Ottawa today. We'll get into that. Maybe I'll give you some picks. Slav is about to go off. Keep the first line intact, says Peter Puck. And listen, I am open to this conversation. I am open to having this dialogue with you today. I certainly am open to talking about Juraj Slafkovsky because he is right now for me, when we talk about, and I ask you the question, give me a player you need to see something from between now and the end of the season. Juraj Slafkovsky is the number one name on my list today. Full stop. Full stop. He is the number one name on my list today is Juraj Slafkovsky. Because I'll just reiterate, I think he was the right pick. I don't think he's a bust. I know how young he is. I know how many games he's played. And I think if there was a mistake, maybe it was allowing him to break camp as a Canadian, allowing him to learn on the fly, learn the job basically while doing the job. I think if mulligans existed in real life and you can jump in the hot tub time machine and go back, I personally would exercise my right to a mulligan. I would exercise my right, and I would have Juraj Slafkovsky have a great camp, good job, pat on the back. We're keeping eyes on you. You're a few metro stops away. You don't even have to transfer. And when the time is right, man, we're going to call you right back up, and we're going to get you here because you're playing well in Laval. You're getting lots of minutes. You're learning the X's and O's. You're making mistakes, learning from mistakes, and time to graduate. But there are no mulligans in real life. There are no mulligans in real life, and you have made a decision, and now they have to continue to operate under that decision and more or less tinker in real time. Because as much as my pal here, Peter Puck, believes you do not take Juraj Slafkovsky off the top line, the only thing that gives me pause, that allows me the freedom to tell you that I think maybe it's time to take him off the top line for now, is the amount of honesty Juraj Slafkovsky shares with everybody. And I'm going to tell you right here and right now, whether I'm on TSN 690 Monday to Friday 6 to 10, or I'm talking to you here every Saturday at 9:30 on youtube.com, I am not in the business of talking about players having no heart, players lazy, yada, yada, yada. The one thing, though, that gives me pause is his honesty and the fact that Juraj Slafkovsky will openly admit, and I'm never going to kill a guy for telling us the truth, in good or bad times. We all want truth, right? We don't want cliche speak. So when Juraj Slafkovsky keeps telling you that the coach had to pull him aside, the general manager had to pull him aside in a hotel lobby and say, listen, 20, it's not enough, man. We need more from you. And then it was Super Bowl weekend. Was it the Jersey or Lightning game? One of those two games. He came out and was demoted off the top line. And it was the Tampa Bay game, right? Where he got demoted off the top line, plays down the order, and played much better. And what did he say after the game when he was asked by reporters about how he felt when he was taken off the Suzuki line? He said it was a wake-up call. And I'm like, fine, you're 20 years old and you're learning the NHL while playing in the NHL. But it's another wake-up call. It was another wake-up call, which leads me to believe, again, that if mulligans existed, I think the Montreal Canadiens brass probably makes a different decision with Juraj Slafkovsky. So it doesn't change the fact that the old cliche is, it is what it is. And he's in the NHL and he's trying to learn the job while doing the job. So I believe we're watching a player with too much pressure, with expectation of wanting to be the facilitator on the top line, making his guys look good while himself looking good. Because there are times when Uri is engaged and he's playing, whether he's picking Victor Hedman to set up a goal from the point, or showing good hockey IQ, picking up a defenseman who left his position in the offensive zone, and the winger's job is to recover that. I've seen that. I've seen him push guys around. I've seen him score goals. I've seen him go to the net. I've seen him make good hockey plays in the offensive zone. It's there. It's there. But it's just another example of pressure, 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 pressure. Johnny Golden in the chat this morning. Good morning, Johnny. 1 assist for Demidov so far in the first period. That's right. SKA St. Petersburg got off to what was it, a 9 o'clock, 9:30 puck drop in Russia. And I believe I read this morning that it looked like Demidov's time was going to be more or less relegated to third, fourth line duties as the KHL season is, I mean, not coming to an end, but it's not that far off. Good morning, Rick Springhetti. Good to see you here. Hab fans drove down to Burlington, Vermont last night to see the 2025 prospect James Hagens, Habs draft pick Jacob Fowler in action. Fowler was solid, making important saves when called upon. Let's go. Let's get this rebuild on the fast track. And with that in mind, let's talk about the Laval Rocket for a second, okay? Let's bring in the Laval Rocket into the chat because they finally put to bed their 2-game losing streak by putting the boots to the Manitoba Moose, who beat them earlier this week. But it's this name right here. If you can see it highlighted on your screen right there, there's your boy, David Reinbacher, playing his second game for the Laval Rocket. I'll put it in a full screen so we can all see it a little bit more clearly together. No goals, no assists, but this is nice here. A nice little +3 with 2 shots and took a minor penalty as the Laval Rocket win a nice game in a 5-1 final. The goals from Joshua Ottawa, Sean Farrell, Bocage, Laurent Dauphin also scored, and Florian Jacki scored again. And Caden Primo in goal, 21 shots against, 20 saves as he picks up another win. It was Connor Hughes in goal earlier this week when the Manitoba Moose beat the Laval Rocket, sending them to back-to-back losses for the first time in over a month. So as it stands now, nice little performance from David Reinbacher, who was a +3 in his second game for Laval. And the Laval Rocket are back in action tonight when they play at Syracuse at 7 o'clock. And now that game won't be on TSN 690, but what I can tell you is, and you heard it from me when we found out that David Reinbacher was going to make his debut earlier this week, I can tell you now that David Reinbacher will not be playing in Syracuse today or tonight. The plan with Reinbacher at this point is to gradually ease him in. And Pascal Vincent, when Reinbacher made his season debut this week, was it Wednesday or Thursday night? Pascal Vincent said that he thought Reinbacher was the best defenseman in the first half of that game and was a -2. So a +3, big 5-1 win for Laval. They get back on the winning track. They're in action tonight at Syracuse. But again, I'll remind you right now that Reinbacher not expected to play for Laval against Syracuse. So, this is a good point here. Jared Davidson is having a fantastic season with the Laval Rocket. And Florian Jacki, as Peter Puck puts in here too, I can see a path for Florian Jacki. I could see a path for Florian Jacki as the new version of Michael Pezzetta with a better offensive upgrade, as someone that can be used sparingly for the Montreal Canadiens in the future. That the Laval Rocket are doing some good things, and they have good players, and that's why, as fun as it was to see the Canadiens come out of the Christmas break and Jakub Dobes shuts out the Panthers and Montreal beats Tampa, they beat Vegas and Colorado, they go to Washington on a Friday night and beat the Capitals there too, one of the better home teams in hockey. That there are no takebacks in life, and no one is talking about how full of shit that was, or unsustainability and all of those things. To me, it was a glimpse into the future. To me, watching that ride over 17 games after Christmas was a glimpse into the future, that with a more well-rounded team, with more consistent depth, more stable goaltending, defensemen that are growing into their roles, the fact that Logan Mailloux is getting more of a taste, Owen Beck is getting more of a taste, David Reinbacher +3 in the Laval win, that with those concepts being brought in, the rebuild to me is on track. The rebuild is where it needs to be, and it's okay to fan. It's okay to get wrapped up in a 17-game sample size and think about playoffs and think about the what ifs, what might be this season. Crazy, right? It's okay. You're allowed to do that as a fan. I encourage you, keep doing that. But also understand, with feet firmly planted on the ground, no, the rebuild isn't over. No, the Canadiens haven't turned the corner. They are in the right direction. Hand on my heart, I believe that. And it's very optimistic to see not only is David Reinbacher ahead of schedule, but he's playing. Caden Guhle walking with a brace on his leg at an Audi dealership in St. Bruno de Montreville. Looks like he's got an Audi endorsement right around the corner if he doesn't have one already. So these are the players I'm talking about. Thinking about, to me, the David Reinbacher pick, as much as I disliked it at the time, because we were sold this bill of goods. Remember, in the Reinbacher draft year, we were sold this bill of goods. All your favorite hockey insiders were talking about how this is the most offensively deep draft in forever. And more or less, they were all saying the same thing. Best draft, so deep, can't miss, blah, 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 blah. And the Canadiens go and take a defenseman. And I remember it put me on tilt. it put me on tilt. I felt like Aaron Rodgers in the Packers, knowing that my career is on the back nine and you're drafting a quarterback, bro. Can you get me some freaking weapons? It made me feel like I related to Aaron Rodgers. That's the only way I can relate to Aaron Rodgers. I don't do ayahuasca. I'm not a deep thinker. I don't pretend to be a deep thinker. But in that moment in time, I related to Aaron Rodgers. I was frustrated. I was like, my whole life, the Canadiens' identity, and arguably, unless you're of a certain age and you got to enjoy the 70s Canadiens, maybe you're like me. And Montreal has never been an offensively gifted team. It's always been good goaltending, team first, collectively they do well, blah, 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 blah. And so going back to the Reinbacher draft is like, wow, what a deep offensively gifted draft this is. And the Canadiens take a more or less a stay-at-home, fundamentally strong, quiet defenseman. Man, it put me on tilt, full stop. And then time marched on, and I calmed down a little bit. And I'm happy for David Reinbacher that he worked his ass off and is able to get back on the ice and play pro hockey in North America. I loved how the Canadiens treated David Reinbacher. My whole life growing up, being in sports radio, I was always told, very fortunate that I've had the chance to professionally talk with NHLers and become friends with a few of them. And we talk in a normal setting, like we were just regular people, right? And I learned so much from these guys that played this game at the highest level. And there are a lot of things they've taught me about, for example, what's the big difference between the American Hockey League and jumping to the NHL? You know what the answer is that I've always heard is the time. The time you have in the AHL to make a decision versus the lack of time you have to execute on a decision at the NHL level, right? Little small details like that when you learn them from the people that played the game or worked in the game at the highest level, I think it helps you understand it a little bit more. And so when I look at David Reinbacher, and I'm like, what's going to make David Reinbacher a good pick for the Ken Hughes, Jeff Gorton regime? And in my mind today, and I still believe this firmly, if David Reinbacher can graduate to the National Hockey League and stay in the National Hockey League and play upwards of 24 minutes a night, I believe that will be a winning pick by the Gorton Hughes regime. Full stop. Without a question in my mind. Because when we talk about guys on the right side, when we talk about depth, who do the Montreal Canadiens have there? You got Caden Guhle playing on his offside all the time. You hope Logan Mailloux is going to fill that void, right? David Savard probably won't be here after March 7th. Just a guess, right? So you've got voids on the right side of the Canadiens' NHL defensemen. And so it just brings us back to the point of, yes, the rebuild isn't over. The heart of the rebuild has yet to show who they are at the NHL level. And by that I mean, really, Ivan Demidov, David Reinbacher, and Jacob Fowler. These are the guys. These are the guys. And obviously, the one player who's here in the National Hockey League that is part of the heart of the rebuild brings us back to Juraj Slafkovsky. End of the day, they need Juraj Slafkovsky. We're going to see when Ivan Demidov comes here next year and starts the season with the Montreal Canadiens, where he slots in, where he fits in, where he's best suited. Personally, today, I'd love to see him match up with Kirby Doc. If I had to make a call, that would be it today. I'd like to see him with Kirby Doc. The Montreal Canadiens need depth. They need high-end depth. And I believe Ivan Demidov is going to be a star eventually with the Montreal Canadiens. And there are a lot of examples of guys that come into the NHL, whether you're Nathan MacKinnon, superstar, MVP of the Four Nations, and you saw it took seasons for him to turn into the Nathan MacKinnon point machine, beast, world-class player. I'm not saying Juraj Slafkovsky is the next Nathan MacKinnon, but what I'm saying is, and the point being is, it just takes some time. That's all. And so when we talk about the timeline, it's still very early. And so Juraj Slafkovsky, for me, is one of the 5 things to pay attention to between now and the end of the regular season. Point number 2 is going to be David Reinbacher's progress and where he goes. And we saw him shake off that rust on Wednesday when he played Manitoba. And Pascal Vincent really liked his game. And it's funny because when you think about David Reinbacher, and this is how I look at Reinbacher, I think he's the opposite of Elaine Hudson, but in a very, very good way. Like Elaine Hudson is this rocket sports car, 2-door hardtop coupe, flying all over the place, making the ladies swoon because he looks so good and has great moves. I think David Reinbacher is like the four-door Cutlass. Comfortable, reliable, sturdy, dependable in a very good way. These two defensemen, and I'm a big fan of this, and maybe guys like Rick Springhetti who scout hockey can fill me in here, because my amateur opinion, I love contrast. So if I have a Lane Hutson who's so excitable and dynamic in his movements and his decision-making and how he processes the game, I'll tell you this, I love the contrast of a David Reinbacher. And so Reinbacher, to me, has settled in nicely with Laval, 2 games plus 3 in his second game after a performance on Wednesday where his side lost. But again, Pascal Vincent said of Reinbacher, he thought he was the best defenseman in the first half of that game. So my bold prediction this morning is I do believe that David Reinbacher will play games this year for the Montreal Canadiens. He looks good. Yeah, Salil, you're right. I know. Cutlass, really, Shaun? I know. I feel a good comment. You got me busted, because I'm going to tell you something. As I was going along, as I was talking about, the sturdiness, Lane Hutson, I was making my sports car analogy. And then I said, oh, shit, I'm going to bring Uri Slafkovsky in. And my brain in real time, as I was talking, my brain was going, oh, my God, who can I compare him to? What type of car is Uri Slafkovsky? And you know what I was thinking about? Remember those, was it the Cadillac DeVille? I love the old caddy seats. So comfortable. Remember there were like mattresses, like sofa, big old, like grandma sofa cushions from our childhood, That's who Reinbacher is to me. I think he's a Cadillac DeVille. He, that comfortable big boat, not going to break down. Like I can run that mother effer into a car, into a brick wall, and it's the wall that's going to be hurt, not my Cadillac, That's who I think Reinbacher is. The lounge seats. Yeah, you got it. You got it, brother. You got it. So those are some of the things. So I gave you a couple of things I'm going to be looking at, right? David Reinbacher's progress. Looking at Cole Caulfield. Cole Caulfield has 26 goals in 56 games. He's on pace for a 38-goal season this year. Is 40 goals achievable for Cole Caulfield this season? Remember, Max Pacioretty, arguably the most consistent goal scorer of his generation as a Montreal Canadien, Pacioretty never got to 40. The most Pacioretty ever got to was 39 back in 2013, 2014. The last Montreal Canadien player, my friends, and this to me just proves the point I've been making since we started our live show together today. My whole life, the Canadiens have been a goalie team. My whole life. And so that's why I was aggravated when they selected David Reinbacher in that offensively deep draft. Because the last player to achieve 40 goals as a Montreal Canadien, my friends, do you know who it is? And do you know what year it happened? It was Vincent Damphousse. You know what year? 1993, 1994. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I graduated Laurel Hill Academy in 1995. It's 2025. The last player to score a 40-burger for the Canadiens was before I graduated high school. It was in 1993. Coincidentally, the last time the Montreal Canadiens won a Stanley Cup. And that's the common thread. When you look at the Canadiens winning in 86 and winning in 93, there are two threads sewn together. Patrick Roy is one. The other is collective goal scoring. When the Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup in 1993, as they did in 1986, collectively the team scored over 300 goals. But there were no stars. There were, Mats Naslund. But again, no stars, right? Patrick Roy turned into a star. But again, it's another goalie. It's not a forward player. And yes, as Peter Puck reminds us, Bellows dropped 40 and 92. But it was Damphousse in 93-94 who's the last guy to drop a 40-burger in a singular season for Montreal. So as long as I've been out of high school, plus another couple of years, I have been waiting for offense to show up in Montreal. So you understand now a little bit more context about the level of aggravation that I think is shared amongst Canadian fans as it relates to, dude, where's the offense? Where's the offense coming from? So it's just another subtle reminder of how important it is and what they're doing. And so I do believe Caulfield's going to have a great chance. As I said already, Caulfield's on pace for 38 this season. Pacioretty's dropped 39 almost a decade ago, or just over a decade ago. So Caulfield's going to have the chance, but he's going to have to start scoring. He has to get on a heater. And as it stands, there's a chance, and I like his chances. I like Caulfield's chances of dropping 40 because the Canadiens do have, but everything's going to depend on how they play coming out of the break. Because Montreal does, in terms of strength of schedule, the Canadiens do have one of the lighter strengths of schedule versus everybody else in the league. It's not going to be easy. The odds, I think, are a little stacked against him. But I think at this point, I think Caulfield can get to 40 if he settles at 35. If Caulfield settles at 35, how would you feel? Would you feel optimistic about the future? Would you feel optimistic that the Canadiens have a top scoring winger in hockey? That's a question I'd love to hear your answer to. If Caulfield projected to score 38, but if he falls short and gets to 35, how does that make you feel? And finally, let me talk about the other point of emphasis on what to pay attention to between now and the end of the season. And I touched on a couple of them. I touched on both Patrik Laine and Juraj Slafkovsky are already. But the question I have, which version of these players is going to show up more often than not between now and game number 82 of the regular season? Like Patrik Laine was okay during the Four Nations Cup. And I think that the pace remains an issue, but I'm not entirely sure that it's not in his psyche somewhere about the injury, how early he came back, the fact that Laine opted for non-invasive procedure in order to rehab his knee, right? And so there's part of me that thinks it's a mental thing with Laine as opposed to a conditioning thing, but I could be wrong. I will leave room to be wrong there. So when it comes to Laine and Slafkovsky, two different players altogether. But the funny thing is, I believe what they do share is they're both very talented and they're also very inconsistent. Like I've seen Patrik Laine play physical. I've seen Patrik Laine use that very long reach, that big body to protect the puck. I think he's very elite. I mean, I think I could say this with the utmost certainty. I've been watching the Montreal Canadiens for arguably 86 to 7 for 35 years. I've been watching the Montreal Canadiens and I can remember hockey from 35 years ago. And I don't think I've seen, as a matter of fact, correction, I know I haven't seen anybody shoot the puck the way Patrik Laine does at any point ever wearing a Montreal Canadiens jersey. And I know who I've seen. I've seen Sheldon Surrey. I've seen Shea Weber. I've seen the Mike Camilleri drop down to one knee on the one-timer. I've seen those. You've seen those. But I stand by it. I've never seen anybody shoot the puck in a Canadiens uniform the way Patrik Laine does. So in Laine's case, can he find consistency between tonight and the 82nd game of the season? As I mentioned already, a good follow on Twitter, DataPuck. He's been all over this. One of those guys very good at the analytics, and I appreciate that because I'm not the best at the analytics, but I understand them. The analytics tell us Patrik Laine right now is he's a 5-on-5 nightmare. And he's more or less playing along the lines of a third, fourth line guy at 5-on-5. And so when the energy perhaps isn't where it needs to be on a regular basis, it's a problem. And so what does that do? Does the Four Nations showcase the fact that he was playing more minutes and everything else? We'll see. It's a massive question mark. It's a massive question mark. Enorm, what's up? Kovalev. Guhle flirted. says Peter Puck. Peter Puck showing his age today. I remember Guhle as a Quebec Nordique, as a New York Ranger. Those are my memories. Those are my memories of the legendary Guhle. Good morning, Steph. Shaun, the only guy I remember close to Laine is Stéphane frickin' Richer. Absolutely. And that's the other thing too, is as Marty points out, and Steph and others, that big number 44 dropping all those shots. And that to me is just another, I wasn't thinking of Stéphane Richer, because whenever I think of Mats Naslund and Stéphane Richer, I'm sure just like some of you do, the connection right in my brain right away is 50 goals, last 100-point guy. That's what those two names say to me all the time. Someone says Stéphane Richer, my brain goes, last guy to drop 50. Someone says Mats Naslund, last guy to drop 100 points in a season for the Montreal Canadiens. And here we are broadcasting together on this 22nd day of February in the year 2025. I'm so fed up. I'm just so aggravated as a fan of talking about frickin' Stéphane Richer and Mats Naslund as the last guys to do that and the other thing, when it seems like, yeah, I'm the guy that looks over at my neighbor's grass and says, damn, look how green that grass is. Yeah, I look over to my neighbors in Ottawa and I look at the stars they have. I look over, into other markets like New York, for example, or Toronto, for example, or in Detroit, for example, and come and go over the last 40 frickin' years. Everyone's got someone. Not us, though. Not us. Never us. How come we can't have an Austin Matthews? Shit, I would take a Brady frickin' Kachuk at this point. I think we can look back at that now and say, my gosh, what a disaster pick that was. Jesperi Kotkaniemi over Brady Kachuk. But that's it. Yeah. Like you, I want the Montreal Canadiens to score goals. I want my favorite hockey team to have everyone's favorite player that doesn't play for them. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And that's why, again, yeah, sure. And would life be different? As Peter Puck reminds us, the Canadiens went with Carey Price instead of who? Anze Kopitar, right? That's the name. Don't take Price. You take Kopitar in that point, right? But as Enorm reminds us here, the guy is coming. And Ivan Demidov. That's the guy. No pressure, young man. No pressure to come to a market where you got jabronis like me and everybody else starved for offense that wants star players, right? No pressure, young man. No pressure to come here and make it all happen. What's up, Aces Cafe? Good to see you, brother. Caulfield reminds me of a Paul Kariya without the Teemu Selanne. Man, Paul Kariya is one of my favorite players. Loved his style. Loved the artistry that Paul Kariya played with. But again, playing in the wrong generation, just like in the National Football League. Remember that segment on ESPN called You Got Jacked Up, where they showed guys almost getting decapitated and have a laugh at it? Paul Kariya played hockey as a pro in that generation. He played in that generation of the Scott Stevens headshot era, skating with your head down, the Don Cherry trolley tracks, blah, 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 blah. And listen, I was a fan of the game. I was a fan of those games. I'm sure if you went into my parents' house, down into the basement, my dad's bookshelf that's filled with old copies of VHS cassettes of MASH and everything else, one of the gifts I got him every holiday period, every year in my adolescence, was Don Cherry's Rock'em Sock'em Hockey. That was the type of household I grew up in. Hashtag no regrets. It was the best. It was the best. I loved Scott Stevens. I loved the big hits. I loved the Eric Lindros. I love all that stuff. I loved all that stuff. But here we are today. And as we found out this week, legendary great goal scorer Bobby Hull posthumously diagnosed with CTE. So it's a little troubling spot we've got here, no doubt. So when we talk about the players we want to watch, when we talk about some of the observations, when we talk about trade deadline as it relates to what the Montreal Canadiens are going to do, I think they're going to sell as they should. Strongly feel that way. And I think we can talk about, and if you watch some of the videos I put out there last week, obviously the LA Kings have been kicking around the New Jersey Devils. I'll have more on that this week. The New Jersey Devils are hunting. New Jersey is looking around for stuff. and so are the LA Kings. And as we know, the LA connection as it relates to Jake Evans, because when we talk about, where are the LA Kings and why does it make sense for the Los Angeles Kings to perhaps do some damage and do some business with the Montreal Canadiens? LA right now, third place in the Pacific Division, right? So right now in good control of a playoff spot for them, as they've got 29 games to go on their season. And you have the Marc Bergevin, Phil Deneau connection. You've got relatability. They're familiar to each other. And it's pretty easy, I believe, for a guy like Jake Evans. And I think if the Montreal Canadiens look at LA, I think if I'm the LA Kings, yes, you can look at their first round pick. I think Montreal can get a first round pick for Jake Evans. And if they fall short of that, I'm going to ask the questions why? Why? Because LA's in a spot where I'm not so sure they thought they'd be. And it's reliable players, it's uncomplicated players like a Jake Evans that I think Jake Evans and Yoel Armia are plug and play players. They're not goal scorers. You're not trading for offense. You're trading for guys who do one thing very well together, and they work hard. That's what they do well together. And that's why it makes sense. And that's why I think teams that are on the periphery of a playoff spot or barely in a playoff spot, holding on to one, I totally see a team willing to give up in the 2025 draft. Not as good as what's happening next year. But if you can land a 2026 first round pick, I would hold off and try to see if there's any leverage there. Certainly, if you're looking at a team like LA or a team like New Jersey and try to package Armia and Evans together. David Savard is another interesting name. I think David Savard is another player that's going to get legitimate interest, but I don't see David Savard getting the same level of return. I don't think we're getting a Ben Sherratt 2.0, serviceable defenseman with a Stanley Cup experience. You know what you're getting. I think David Savard's game, unfortunately, has fallen off to the point where it's not a comparable, really, to what Ben Sherratt did. And I have no problem if David Savard brings a second or even a third round pick in exchange. I would take that deal and run with it. I do not subscribe to the theory that there are too many picks. I do not subscribe to that theory. Picks are just another way of using the word leverage. You can fatten deals. You can use their picks instead of your picks in order to enhance a trade or to make a deal, full stop. Don't forget, you can pick up your Shaun Starr hat and your Shaun Starr Show coffee mug. And don't forget, I also have the all-in-black design too. So it got the all-in-black design, the snapback hat, good quality, great embroidery design on the logo. So you can have a look at that and help support the show as always, because as I mentioned earlier, everything we do here in terms of generating revenue through YouTube.com is more along the lines of just putting it back into the show, right? So that's what we're doing there. So when you look up and down, you can see whether it's the mug, it's an 11-ounce microwavable dishwasher-safe mug for $14.50, delivered to you right away. And so you can get that into your hands by simply going to the ShaunStarShow.com. And when you're there, yes, we got the all black hat, as you can see here, with the snapback embroidery design. Nice looking logo with the hockey sticks, the football, the golf club, and of course, Canada proud on this show all the time. But if you like the two-tone, as you can see, I'm wearing it on the screen now. Here, the two-tone, there's the two-tone. You can have a look at that there. Same thing, the nice embroidery and the snapback feature with the nice embroidered logo with the little microphone representing the letter A in my name. So you just go to the ShaunStarShow.com, and that's where you can find that there. So let's see. Let's get to some of your comments. Salil Sabreen, what's up, Salil? Golf fanatical like you, Shaun. Salil, S-H-A-U-N. Playing 18 at the Sim today. Golf 5 weeks away in Connecticut. I haven't hit the Sim very much. My Sim life is coming soon. The Sim life is coming soon. I've just been focused on YouTube, on getting this channel off the ground and just constantly tinkering with it in order to just make it better. So good on you. You're going with some buddies today, having some fun on the Sim. Golf is 5 weeks away. My season is not 5 weeks away. Let me see here. Feb 22nd. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm saying my season is 10 to 11 weeks away. Good on you, brother. Get out there while you can, as often as you can. Here's another one. Peter Puck. Hearing Washington really likes Evans. Here's a tip for you, and take it for what you think it's worth. Watch out for the Washington Capitals. Watch out for the Washington Capitals. They did not have a single player. They did not have a single player at the Four Nations. This is a good team. This will be a motivated team. Watch out for the Washington Capitals. Peter, I could totally see the Washington Capitals sniffing around, trying to shore up and see if they can get their own version. As you remind us here, Evans can be the new Lars Eller for them. Montreal will be selling, but keeping in mind that picks don't fit the blueprint of the rebuild. Top prospects is probably what they seek. But I don't agree with that. I just don't. Picks don't fit the blueprint of the rebuild. What's the blueprint of the rebuild? Is the blueprint of the rebuild reclamation projects? Is that the blueprint? Because they've done it twice with Kirby Doc and Alex Newhook? I don't think so. I think they tried the strategy. I think they tried to, like everybody else, everybody's in a hurry. Everybody's in a hurry, and everybody has their own way of doing things. And Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon are in a hurry to hurry up this freaking rebuild. They want it done with. And so one of the strategies that they thought was the best way to do this was to look at guys like Kirby Doc and say, why aren't you working out in Chicago? Why aren't you working out in Colorado? Oh, he's not working out in Colorado because he was playing behind guys like Mikko Rantanen, etc., and Gabriel Landeskog. Well, let's get him over here. He's a talented player, top 6 player. Kirby Doc, same thing. I believe Kirby Doc can be the man. I do, and I read all your comments on the channel. I read all your comments on the channel when I put out my Kirby Doc video. I did. I read them. I saw what you guys were saying about Kirby Doc. And listen, if you're comfortable pulling the chute and thinking that he's not going to be anybody, time will tell if you are right. I am not comfortable saying that here's a guy back from a devastating injury and that he's crap and he's never going to be. No, I see glimpses. And again, I look for patterns to tell a credible story. And the pattern I see that tells me the story is he doesn't have good enough line mates. And while he's trying to be better himself and figure out his own role in the National Hockey League, he's playing with Alex Newhook, who's snake bitten. He's playing with Patrick Laine, who's slow and can't keep up. And 5-on-5 is not a good player. And Kirby Doc's trying to be the centerman that makes his line mates better. And that obviously hasn't worked. But please, let's wait and see as this team tries to get better and deeper and more dynamic in their top 6 before we pull the chute on Kirby Doc and say the guy's a El Busto. I'm not there. 145. Yeah, we were like at 160 there before. We're at 140 now. Only now you have to hit the like button, please. Or don't. Or not. I don't know. I mean, I try to ask you guys, but I guess it's hard to do clicking the mouse sometimes. Or you just don't forget, or you just don't think of it. I get it. We should sell our guys and get all next year's picks. So yeah, just to take it back there as a Norm, weighs in with his own opinion. Top prospects is what they seek. I mean, everybody wants top prospects, whether you're top team in hockey or not. Everybody wants top prospects for sure. But they've won too many games, I think, to be talked about as top prospect hunting, certainly as it relates to the draft. Peter thinks it's better off to keep David Savard as opposed to getting minutes for Logan Mailloux. I'll take Logan Mailloux up with the Canadiens playing in the final run of games here. If the Canadiens do, I expect them that they're going to move off from David Savard, but I think the Canadiens ultimately is what I'm saying. I think Montreal is going to be kind of busy here coming up. So make sure you stay tuned to this channel. We'll have breaking news as it happens right here at youtube.com. I would trade Savard and give young right-handed defensemen a chance for good experience. I agree. We should sell our guys and get all of next year's picks. Thank you. Come on, fans. Smash that like button. Help Shaun out. Thank you, Peter Puck, for having my back. I I have a good HAB channel going. Thank you. That's what we're trying to do. Is I told some people in the comments, some people in the comments I talk about all the time. I am very much open to engagement, debate. I love to debate. I love to respectfully argue with certain people. No yelling. It's not personal. No one's ready to fight because you have a view on draft picks or top prospects, and I don't see it that way. I'd like to get back to, I don't want to sound like that old guy, but I'd like to get back to the way it was a little bit more, where there's room for everybody to see things the way they see them. And if you could express yourself in a professional, respectful way, I'm definitely open. I am not here to say or to even think that my opinion is the golden rule and how I think it should be done, should the way it be done. I know there are people watching me there. We have 136 people right now on the stream. I know out of those 136, there's probably a few of you that are a lot smarter than me in various aspects of life. And so if I can learn and understand your point of view, that's all we're trying to do. So thank you, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build this channel so that HAB fans have a good place to go to, where engagement is encouraged, debate is encouraged, various points of view are encouraged, while also doing so in a respectful, fun, engaging kind of way. That's the mission. That's the goal. James, good morning. I think Jake Evans is a great team player and improving every year. I know what you're saying, bro. I know what you're saying, but I agree. Jake Evans is a great soldier. NCAA guy, comes from the Notre Dame product, the Notre Dame system. Toronto kid, 7th overall. Remember that? Jake Evans was drafted 207th overall over 10 years ago, and played upwards of 120 games in the American Hockey League, and then came to the National Hockey League. But the thing is, Jake Evans has played 82 games once in his career. His highest point total ever as an NHL player is 29. And that was 2021, 2022 when he played 72 games. So points-wise, he has not gotten better every year. This year will be his career year. Jake Evans is on 27 points and 11 goals. The most goals Evans has ever scored in a season is 13. He's on 11 now. The most assists Evans has ever put up in a single season was 21, and that was last year. He's on 16 now. He's going to have a career year for Jake Evans. And as I like to remind everybody, we love Jake Evans when Jake Evans was shooting at 30%. It's fallen off now. And, maybe Emil Heineman explains part of that. I don't think Emil Heineman is the reason why, personally. I think it's partly the reason why, but Jake Evans is not a 30% shooter. And so I'm a law of averages guy. It was only a matter of time that he was going to come back down to earth. And that's why I've been pretty consistent here with everybody. If you can sell Jake Evans at a high price point, you got to pull the trigger. You have to pull the trigger because the rebuild is not done. All of these things can be true. We like Jake Evans. Yes, true. Jake Evans is a hard worker. True. Jake Evans should be rewarded. True. Jake Evans is a team player. True. The Montreal Canadiens, is the time right to keep Jake Evans for 4 years? No, not true. I don't think that is the right strategy. And I think the return can be, in terms of a hockey jargon, I think it could be a nice fat return for Jake Evans. As a lot of you have pointed out in the comments here, he is an elite level penalty killer. He is, if not the best fourth line player, he is in the conversation. He is in the top 3 of the best fourth line PK players in hockey, end of sentence. And that, my friends, come playoff time, is what teams covet. They want responsible, non-dramatic, ultra-reliable, plug-and-play players. Jake Evans is the definition of a plug-and-play player. Put him in any team system, go work hard, go win some draws, go block some shots, your job is done. Jake Evans is that guy. I think he's mastered that craft, and I think if you want Jake Evans, I think you should have to pay for that privilege and all that hard work that Jake Evans, to the point where he's going to be 29 and a pending UFA, Jake Evans has earned the right to maximize his value on the open market. But if the Canadiens see it differently, then listen, that's their prerogative. If they are comfortable in a world in which Jake Evans is here at 4 years times $3.5 million per season over the next 4 years, I would disagree with that, and I would openly disagree with it right here. I just don't see the timing being right. I wish it were, because I'll reiterate, I think that teams that want to go on deep runs and want to have a good culture in their organization have guys like Jake Evans in their organization. Any news on Kaiden Guhle? Is he fragile or unlucky? So that's interesting, right? Like, yeah, I mentioned it earlier, Ace, about Kaiden Guhle. I saw him. He was on a photo or something like that on Instagram, and he had a big leg brace on. He was at an Audi dealership in St. Bruno de Montreville. I don't know if he's got a new endorsement for an RS6 or an RS7 or something like that, but he was standing. He wasn't on crutches. I saw that. And also remember, Kaiden Guhle, I mean, unlucky, injury prone. Yes, I do. I think both of those things. But here's a fun thing. When Kaiden Guhle is hurt, the Montreal Canadiens only win 33% of their games. And that, my friends, is not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. What's up, Joe? Good morning. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Please hit the like button as we can help. I think the more likes we get, I think the algorithm picks up on it and it gets shared or whatever. John, you think they're going to package some picks to move up the draft order this year? I think everything's on the table, John. I think everything's on the table. And we're going to get into this a little bit later, as I'm going to study up on the draft a little bit more intently and have some guests that are a little bit more draft orientated, so we can all learn about the draft and who's who, etc., together on this channel moving after the trade deadline. Because to answer your question, John, I need to see how the Canadiens are going to play starting tonight in Ottawa at 7 o'clock on TSN 690. How are the Canadiens going to play? What's their energy output going to look like? What's the trade deadline going to do to the team morale? If some popular guys, some friends get traded between now and March 7th. So those are the things in the here and now I'm going to be paying attention to. But I think to your question, I think everything's on the table. Everything's on the table. So yeah, thank you so much. And don't forget, you can always help out the Shaun Starr Show in the comment section. You see that little $ there. Some super chats like my boy Steph Howard did there. All the revenue just goes back into the show. That's how I was able to buy the hats and buy these nice 11-ounce, beautiful ceramic The Shaun Starr Show mugs. And again, you can see here on our channel, that's where it all is. So you have the nice all black hat, the 11-ounce microwavable, dishwasher safe ceramic mug, 11 ounces. I just put my little Keurig beverage in this mug today, right there, in the two-tone snapback hat, available on our website, ShaunStarShow.com, with delivery prompt, expedited by yours truly. And that's where all of those monies go. So I spend, put it back into the channel, and hope that we can continue to grow this community that we've been working so hard at since November. Thank you, Johnny, for the update. SKA St. Petersburg losing 5-2 in the second. Ivan Demidov still on one assist. Henny, Dallas Stars will shine bright this postseason as the AHL Canadiens will yet again be at the bottom of the standings. Tough scene. Dallas Stars? Okay. Yeah. Good team. Okay. I guess Henny is a Dallas Star fan and is poking the Canadiens fans. Brother, your team has been a Stanley Cup contender. I'm going to assume you're a Dallas fan. Like, your team has been a Stanley Cup contender. I don't get the shot as Canadian fans at the bottom of the standings. Well, they're not at the bottom of the standings. The Sharks and Blackhawks are at the bottom of the standings. The Canadiens are 6 points out from a playoff spot, which would not make them bottom of the standings. Tough scene. Henny, the Canadiens are rebuilding. So I think you could do better. If you want to troll, you could do a little bit better than that. Oh, look at this. Nice. Everyone's saying hi to each other. That's nice. Nice. I like that. Everybody's saying hi. Everybody's friends. Let's Let's see here. I think in 2 years, Becker Kapanen could be as good as Evans. Listen, I'm gonna try to think. Sean Campbell finally got back to me. I could. Okay, good. I could, says Sean. So I'm going to have Sean Campbell on the show this week, and we're going to talk about Owen Beck. We'll talk about Logan Mailloux. We'll talk about Reinbacher. So Sean Campbell is going to come up this week on the program, and we are going to talk about Owen Beck because Campbell made this point to me before Christmas. He believes, and for the uninitiated, Sean Campbell is the play-by-play man for the Laval Rocket on your home for Laval Rocket Hockey TSN 690. And he believes his opinion on Owen Beck is a Jake Evans with better goal scoring. So Sean Campbell knows of what he speaks. He's been around Beck. He's been around that team for a while. And that's part of why I'm comfortable and I wouldn't say aggressive, but confident that the Montreal Canadiens should move away from Jake Evans. Price tag too high, timing not right. And Owen Beck and Oliver Kapanen are coming, and so is Michael Hage. Later in the timeline of this, compared to Kapanen, who made the team, Oliver Kapanen made the Canadiens this fall out of camp, but then gets loaned to the SHL in Sweden and having a good year by all accounts. So I expect Kapanen to be a full-timer next year. I think Owen Beck has a great chance at being a full-timer next year. So where does Evans fit into this equation? Where does Armia fit into this equation? Because I think you can move Kapanen to the wing. You know, in the world in which you look at the Canadian center depth as early as next year, could it be as early as next year? Montreal center depth goes Suzuki, it goes Doc, it goes Beck, it goes Kapanen, or someone else. If they can figure out maybe Kapanen's better suited on the wing, I do not know. But I could see a world in which maybe it moves something or looks something like that as early as next season. Peter Puck with the prediction tonight. High-scoring game, says Peter. 7 goals, Habs 4, Ottawa 3. Chris, good morning. Fairly simple on Guhle. When moved to right D, he gets injured. Playing on LD, he doesn't. I mean, I don't disagree, bro. I don't disagree. And that's what's amazing about Caden Guhle is the fact that he's so good on his offside for so long. So good point. Thank you, Chris, for bringing that to the conversation today. Marty, I don't think we see Oliver Kapanen in Montreal again this year. I think this year in 2025, yes, because in the fall, I think you'll see him then. So technically, yes, I will say, but in September. Do you think you could build a package to throw at Washington that could wrestle a first from them in, say, 27? Again, in 27, that seems a little too far into the future for me. How much confidence do you have in these organizations that they're in the weeds so much that they know arguably what their strategy is going to be in 2027? I don't know. I don't think I'm smart enough to answer that question right now. Good morning. Bon matin, mon gars. Salut, Gilles. Trade all 4 UFAs. Get what you can. Use assets to improve the team from next year and beyond. Merci, mon gars. Oh, boy. Yes. No. Brady Kachuk. So you want an anecdote? You want an anecdote on Brady Kachuk, Jesperi Kotkaniemi in that draft year? You want an anecdote? I'll give you an anecdote. So I've gotten to speak to a couple of people inside the Canadiens organization at the time when Jesperi Kotkaniemi was the draft pick, right? And I was like, why him? So young. And the answer and this is hand on my heart, this is what I was told, truthfully, was that they were amazed at what Jesperi had accomplished at his age relative to other players and their accomplishments at similar ages. And he was kind of unique in the sense that he had done some, and I don't remember all the details, but they were blown away by his attitude, his ability to process information, and the high-level hockey he had played at the age that he was drafted at. And that's what I was told was the separating between Kachuk and Jesperi. And that's why they went with Jesperi. That's what I was told, hand on my heart, by somebody. I'm not going to name names. I've learned my lesson the hard way. I'm not going to name names. That was the separation. That was the separation. They liked Brady Kachuk. They did. They liked Brady Kachuk. They thought he was going to be the player, but they thought, again, understand this. Understand this. The Canadiens, even in the final years of Marc Bergevin, want to be more dynamic offensively. They know that. And they thought that Jesperi Kotkaniemi, again, with the accomplishments he had hit as a teenager relative to other players in previous draft years, that they thought, okay, this was going to be the guy. This was going to be the guy, legitimate offense, going to grow into a role. Whoops, wrong pick, clearly. Because yes, there's no doubt. And anybody who says, yeah, Kotkaniemi, I would have done the same thing, you're wrong. Drives me crazy, right? When you ever run into people in your life, or you see people in the movies or on TV, it's like, man, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. Well, then you'd be still in the same freaking spot you're in today. So yes, you should change things. And in the world of, I wouldn't change a thing, I would still draft who I drafted. Well, you're a moron because you made a mistake. You should draft Brady Kachuk. End of sentence. And listen, pardon me, and maybe I'm reading too much into this. Let me just finish my thought on Brady Kachuk for a second. The National Hockey League owes the Kachuk brothers a lot. Yes, they do. Because the Kachuk brothers, the Kachuk boys, Matthew and Brady, helped turn the Four Nations into what it turned into. End of sentence. I believe that with every fiber of my hockey being today. The group chats, the smack talk, the confidence, scoring on Championship Thursday. You saw the reaction on Brady Kachuk's face. I mean, these guys, these boys, as much as I despise the geopolitical conflict between our country and the United States of America, the positive there, it helped bring us together, in my opinion. I mean, you pissed off Canada so much, even Quebec was ready to defend the country of Canada. That's how angry you made a lot of people here. And I think the Kachuk brothers took like a wrestling element, WWE style, and brought it to hockey. And I thank them for it, because the Four Nations was a hell of a lot better than I ever thought it was going to be. And I was 180 degrees removed from being right on the Four Nations. I thought it was a glorified all-star game. I thought it was an exhibition. I thought it was a fake put-on tournament by the NHL that doesn't know how to market its league correctly, in my opinion. But again, I was 180 degrees removed from being right. It was an unbelievable tournament. I felt like a fan again. I felt alive watching Team Canada. On Thursday, I went to bed nervous. I woke up nervous. I couldn't wait for 8 o'clock all day Thursday. I'll be totally honest with you. I was such a fan on Thursday that I didn't want to go to work on Friday if the Canada lost. I didn't want to have to listen and read from American hockey fans that beat my country's national team in a best on best tournament. I had very little appetite, very, very little appetite to go on social media and to talk about and hear all that, because you know what it would have been like, man, if the Americans won that game. You know, from the man who sits in the Oval Office to all the jabronis on from Barstool and everybody else, it would have been beyond nauseating. So from a deep fan perspective, man, it felt good to feel alive. I'm so proud every day. The Four Nations doesn't make me a more patriotic Canadian. I'm as patriotic today as I was before the Four Nations was ever even thought of. I'm a diehard, proud Canadian. And I would have been in the Canadian military if one of my friends got accepted into the military. Did you know that about me? When I got out of high school, the first thing I did was, me and my buddies, we went to the Army Recruitment Center on St. Catherine Street, and we all filled out applications. And me and my two other friends, Zach and Seb, We went in, filled out applications to join the Canadian military. I was the only one who got called back to come in for an interview. They wanted to meet me, and I got scared and never returned the call and never went. But I've always felt this. Even I'll tell you another personal bit of business about myself was I always thought I was going to be a police officer. I wanted to be a cop. My parents always thought I had very good instincts for figuring things out, detective style. My dad always said that about me, my mom too. And so I thought I was going to be a police officer, to the point where I started the process of getting an RCMP career underway. I took the intensive St. John's life-saving course. I took some typewriting courses because there was, you needed your eyesight tested. I think you needed to pass or write X amount of words at a certain amount of time. And then you needed the St. John's 3-day intensive life-saving instruction. You had to pass that in order to get the RCMP thing rolling. But obviously, I'm not an RCMP officer. So all that to say, it's always kind of been in me since I was a little boy. And so, yeah, I stand by that. I'm always a diehard Canada on my heart, Canada all day. And it bothered me. It still bothers me. I hate the fact that we've turned into this like us against them when we're frickin' neighbors and we're allies and always have been. So like John Cooper said, after Canada won in overtime on the McJesus winner, everybody's proud, but if Canada needed this one, and I agree, Canada needed that one at the Four Nations in Boston. Great stuff. Great tournament. So good. What's up, Ace? Thoughts on Mike Matheson's future? That's a good one. I keep going back and forth on Matheson, right? Because I like him. I like that he's a leader. I like that he's from the West Island. I think it's important, not the be all end all, but in my head, I like guys that play for the Montreal Canadiens that are from Montreal and from Quebec. I like that. Mike Matheson is not a, how do I put this? Mike Matheson isn't a top pair defenseman, but man, I love having him on the team. And in the world in which the Canadiens are better, Mike Matheson as your 3 defenseman, as your 4 defenseman, man, how if we're talking one day together about Mike Matheson being a 3rd or 4th defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens, man, how good are the Canadiens? That's what I see. I think he's an excellent player. I think he's a good soldier, but is he a top defenseman? No. And if there's a team, he wears an A on a sweater for a reason. And I think if a team comes poking around wondering about, hey, maybe we can use Mike Matheson's offense on this team, then I think I would really listen. Don't forget, you can go to the ShaunStarShow.com and get some new merch that dropped: 2-tone hats, snapback hats, lightweight, very durable, high quality. As always, I would never do anything shitty, cheap, or at anything at that level. Quality means the most to me. So head over to the website, ShaunStarShow.com, pick up your mug, pick up either one of those 2 hats, and we'll get that over to you ASAP. Anthony from Greenfield Park. What's up, Anthony? Great show. The only person unluckier than Guhle is the lady from the mistreatment hotline commercials. Mike, how much longer will Brady want to play in Canada? Good question. Good question, brother. Who doesn't think about that? Who doesn't think about what's going to happen with Brady Kachuk's future? I would be surprised. I would be surprised if the Ottawa Senators don't do some damage. If they don't do damage, I think Brady Kachuk is donezo. I think he's donezo with the Ottawa Senators personally. But if Ottawa gets into the playoffs and Ottawa does something, then I could see a world in which Brady Kachuk, as the captain of that team, decides to finish perhaps what he helped start in the nation's capital. New ownership, maybe new land agreement for a new arena. And the team they've got real talents in Ottawa. And maybe now with the Allmark, maybe they have the goaltending position figured out in Ottawa with the Sens. So that's how I see that, Mike. I think it's an excellent question. And I've been thinking about it. So that's where my mind takes me with Brady is he needs to show that what he's doing in Ottawa is leading to good things that will one day lead to where his brother ended up as a Stanley Cup champion, right? Oh my God, I don't want to talk about the Kotkaniemi draft anymore. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, taking us back to the Kotkaniemi conversation we had about where they were and the needs of what they wanted. But I guess in hindsight being what it is, and I get it, it's a shot from the cheap seats is what I'm going to say next is when a guy like Brady Kachuk comes rolling around in the draft and you have a chance to grab him, the lesson is you grab a Brady Kachuk, you know, that hard-nosed, engaged player, because Juraj Slafkovsky this week talked about you want to win in this league, you got to play like Brady Kachuk. And I don't disagree. Those have always been my kind of favorite players. Is I just don't think playing like Brady Kachuk is a taught skill. You know what I mean? I don't think you can like pull your eye and bring in, you know, a hard-nosed player and say, okay, take notes because I'm going to show you how to be a tough SOB, a nasty customer on the ice. Like, I think that's in you. I think you're born with it and you bring it to the, it's very hard to be an asshole every day. It's very hard to play that role all the time. And I don't listen, I don't know Brady Kachuk off the ice, but I think on the ice, I think he's an asshole. I mean that as a compliment, truthfully. Gilbert, how will Kachuk react tonight? I think as Brady Kachuk likes to do, I think he's going to be a pain in the ass if he plays. I think he's going to hit guys to hurt them. And he's going to try everything to do to win. You know, when watching that game Thursday night, like, I mean, Brady Kachuk was the first guy in Jordan Binnington's face when Binnington put his trapper to freeze the puck. There was Brady Kachuk right in his face, a little small snow shower, being the asshole that he is on the ice all the time. It's what he does. And I love it. I wish we had him. I wish we had a big asshole like that in Brady Kachuk. I really do. I don't disagree. Mike with the hot take. Four Nations was better than the Super Bowl. Wow, listen, I mean, bro, this was the first Super Bowl in how long? It was a blowout. It was a blowout. The Eagles cracked the Kansas City Chiefs. Another Donald Trump pick. Remember he was on the field shaking hands, guys in the warm-up and everything else? Matthew jumping in. Welcome. Thank you. Can we talk about Anderson's playoff-style game with the cap jumping? And I think teams are calling about him. Personally, I think it's a good comment. I wasn't planning on talking about that. But I do believe, listen, you know, Josh Anderson doesn't score a lot of goals. You know, I believe he's been more or less reassigned, you know, to be this guy. He's a hard worker, goes to the net, drives the net all the time. And I am not being critical of Josh Anderson. I don't think you should be critical of Josh Anderson either. But he doesn't score. He full stop doesn't score. He's a hardworking player. Here's a number for you, okay? You ready for this Josh Anderson number? And I wasn't even planning on talking about it, but here I am anyway. You ready for this? In the last 2 years, Josh Anderson has played a total of 134 games. That's how many games he's played. How many goals has Josh Anderson scored in those 134 games over the last 2 seasons? The answer is 17. 17 goals in 134 games. So I don't care how much money you're making. It's not enough production. It's not even close. And, you know, plus minus on a bad team, I get it, you know, but he's like almost a minus 30, I believe. I'll have to double check that number, but I think Josh Anderson's like almost minus 30 if I'm going off memory. So if teams, I'll tell you right now, I like Josh Anderson, but if teams are calling, I'm trying to find Josh Anderson's stats here. If teams are calling for Josh Anderson, yeah, in his last 2 years, minus 29. If teams are calling for Josh Anderson and the Montreal Canadiens can alleviate themselves of that salary, then it's over. It's over. Athanasios Did you catch Tony's trolling of Boston radio? Good on Tony, bro. Good on Tony, bro. Having an impact on the French side of the radio world and everything else. I don't really listen to the radio station that much, but I saw that he had a moment online yesterday and kind of went viral locally with Tony calling Boston and trolling them. And I'll give him credit. Because I worked with Marinaro for a long time. And this act here, I've seen it many, many, many times. Many. He's done it forever. When the Canadiens were playing the Bruins, calling WE, calling Felger and those guys at the Sports Hub or WEI or whatever it was. I've seen that act for 20 years. And he's taken that act to the French side, and they're hearing it now for the first time. So good on him. He's got 20 years worth of material to bring over to French radio, and they're hearing it all for the first time, but I've heard it for 2 decades. But good on him. He's having success over there, and not easy to do. Not easy to do as an Anglophone. It happens a lot more on the French side, where French Quebecers come to English media, right? TV or radio, right? Francois Gagnon on TSN, on Canadiens regional games. I worked for years as a co-host to Denny Cassavant on English sports talk radio, 4 hours a day with Denny Cassavant. Connor and I have Mark Denis on twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:35. So it happens a lot more where French-speaking Quebecers come and do their thing on the Anglo side. It does not happen nearly as much where the Anglos go to the Franco side, right? I mean, PJ Stock is a guy that's done it. So, I'll give Tony credit for making an impact as an Anglophone in French media. That part is definitely worthy of a compliment. 100% is not an easy thing to do. Like I'm pretty bilingual. Like I'm bilingual. I can read, write, and speak French pretty well. Could I go onto a French radio show and do 4 hours? Could I do this show? I've been on right now for 1 hour and 22 minutes. We're at 163 live people watching me right now. Thank you. Please hit the like button. 163. It looks like I bored 2 people. I don't think I can do this 1 hour and 22 tout en français. Je pense pas. Peut-être, mais not as good as Tony, that's for sure. So, yeah. Lots of comments coming in today. My phone's going off like crazy. Let me see. Matthew, thanks for answering my question. Things are just happening. Montreal picks up. Oh, dude. I did a whole video on Nick Ehlers. So much so, Nick Ehlers was my guy, bro. I want Nick Ehlers hard in July. So much so, guys from Winnipeg called me. So, can you come on Winnipeg Sports Talk? Because I want Nick Ehlers because of the Patrick Laine connection. Nick Ehlers asked, by the way, wasn't given one, asked for a Canadiens jersey, and Patrick Laine gave it to him. So, what's this? All you are missing to be as good as Tony is the signing. Oh, the singing. The singing. That's what I think you mean. Because like Marinaro, I've got the merch. But like I said, like I already have a job and shit like that. I'm just trying to generate revenue so I could put it back into the show. I could pay my guests more money, and I can have better. I want better graphics. I want a better microphone. I want better lighting. And ultimately, I think I want. See how I'll put it back here. See all this behind me? Right, I got my old dog Leon there. I've got my Titleist staff bag. That is a Leon head cover. Back here, this is all my wife's CD collection and all this stuff. In a perfect world, I would take the revenue that I generate from selling hats and beautiful coffee mugs off of my website. I would do that and take those revenues and put it into. I want a green screen. and I'm going to have a graphic artist design. You know how like you watch like in the old days Letterman or Tonight Show or whatever, and they'd have like a skyline behind them, and they have a beautiful backdrop, and maybe the city of New York or Los Angeles or something like that. That's what I want to do. That's where, instead of having Leon there and my golf bag there and my wife's CDs all up there, I would like to have like a Tonight Show themed background, green screen. And so all that shit costs money, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. Oh, dude, I've been on the lack of pace on Patrick Laine for a minute, man, for a minute. Mr. Niles. As an Anglo-Montrealer, it's tough to learn traditional French in school and then be released into Quebecois jargon and operate in stride. And that's the thing too. Like when I was leaving elementary school, I remember this. I went to Souvenir Elementary School in Laval up until grade 5. Grade 5, I went to Ville Saint Laurent and went to Parkdale Elementary, did my grade 5, did my grade 6, and I was done. And then it was time to pick a high school, right? And so I remember this in grade 6, we had an orientation, and my parents were there, and the two high schools in Ville Saint Laurent for me that I was going to go to was either going to be Saint Laurent Junior High School or Sir Winston Churchill High School. Those were the two schools. And Saint Laurent High was a junior high school. Sir Winston was the full grade 7 to grade 11, full-fledged high school, no uniform, had a very nasty, violent reputation as a high school. It was known in my day, Sir Winston Churchill was a tough school, right? Tough kids, fights, all this shit, right? Saint Laurent High was the junior high school, and you wore a uniform, and it was a bilingual high school and a junior high. And by that, I mean, I don't know if it's still the same, but when I was in school, going to bilingual high school was the student body was English. All of your courses were in French, save for English, right? So my dad wanted me to go to Sir Winston. My mom wanted me to go to Saint Laurent High. She thought it was very important that her son be fluent in French. She liked the structure of the uniform, blah, 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 blah. So yes, I went to Saint Laurent High, right? And no regrets. I'm grateful. That was the school my parents sent me to. I spent all of my high school years in a uniform because ultimately Saint Laurent High and Sir Winston merged schools to form Lauren Hill Academy. And that was the high school I ultimately graduated from in 1995. And so from grade 7 all the way through 11, I wore a uniform every day for school. And I can sit here today and tell you, man, I'm so grateful. I'm glad. I love the uniform. And my reasons why, I think it created equality. I think everybody that was there was the same. Like you couldn't tell whose family had money versus the family that didn't have money, right? It was a white shirt and black slacks, black shoes. That was it. So everybody stood on equal footing. And the fun part about uniforms for me was, I think once a month or whatever it was, like on a Friday, it was dress down Friday. You didn't have to wear a uniform. And let me tell you something. When you tell uniform students that they can wear whatever they want to school, oh baby, people went to the nines. They went to the nines. I'm sure people woke up like 3 hours early, put the makeup, get the hairspray, get the nice shirt, get the nice jeans. I mean, you put on a fashion show, you needed to flex. So yes, I ended up going to Lauren Hill, and it was a bilingual high school. So I did my math in French, I did geography and history in French, all that stuff, all in French, but we were all Anglos. And I'm very grateful that my parents made that strategic, or my mother made that strategic decision to make sure that her boy grows up and is able to communicate en français, because I think that's the difference between, let's say, my parents' generation versus my generation. And I guess I'll bring politics back in. The Parti Québécois, brought French more prominently back into the province. And that was the difference. When my dad was going to school, they barely learned French versus when I went to school, it was all about that. So I'm very grateful. And to this day, I love speaking different languages. I'm the type of guy, when I go on vacation and I hear someone speaking French, me too. I am that guy. I am that guy. Yeah, no kidding. 95, baby. Your boy's old. Your boy's old. Peter went to West Hill and NDG in Summerlin. So that's it for me. Bubble tea. I think you should do what Twitch streamers do. Post it. Bro, I am not doing that. Wish list? When I go on Amazon and I want people to buy me gifts? Absolutely not. Or maybe you're talking about the green screen. Maybe. No, listen. There are things I could do, like, all this stuff I pay for myself. I do have a job. I'm on the radio every day. I do have a job. But again, just trying to enhance the youtube.com show. That's all. That's all. So yeah, you can pick up all your favorite Shaun Starr merch, ShaunStarShow.com. 11-ounce ceramic mug, beautiful mug. Such a salesman. Dishwasher, microwavable, all that stuff. Two-tone snapback hats. Great embroidery there. You can see that. Look at that. That's classy. That's really classy. Good stuff, Star. You really brought it home today, brother. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So it's 11 o'clock. We went 90 minutes strong today. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for contributing to the show. Make sure you like the stream today. Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Senators at 7. Listen to it live on TSN 690. And join me tomorrow morning. How about selling one of your caps with an urban camo background? What's urban camo? What color is that? Green and no, that's Army camo. Desert Storm camo. But yeah, you give me ideas. I'm all for it. But in the meantime, I have this one and I have an all black snapback hat. ShaunStarShow.com. But yeah, a camo for sure. I can definitely make that happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Dames. Thank you, Frankie. Good to see you in the live stream. Ace, always a pleasure, as always. Rick Spaghetti, Steph Howard, all my favorite people. Peter Puck, Athanasios, nice to see you back here on a Saturday morning. Matthew, everybody jumping in. Steph Howard, thank you so much for the super chat, super sticker today. Greatly appreciate it, and always know that all your funds go right back into the program, as always. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy the game tonight. I will be back here tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. as we recap the Habs finally back in action tonight at Ottawa. Join me right here at 9:30 Sunday morning as we catch up on the Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Senators and set up a brand new week. And I think things are going to start to get busy with the Canadiens and the NHL trade deadline. Have a great Saturday.